and we are now going to be wrapping up. I do know it's a public holiday, and I do know you're taking things really nice and easy. But I think this is a very important interview that we're going to share with you today. We've been talking about real heavy political stuff. We spoke about, obviously, the war on Iran. We spoke about what's playing out in Burkina Faso. We also spoke about what's happening right in our own backyards, and that's the Cape Flats, the gangsterism, and of course, greedy developers trying to get their hands on prime property, once again, to enrich themselves, where there's a huge shortage regarding housing for the poor and the middle class people in the Western Cape, and I guess all around South Africa. But of course, Roxanne du Plessis, Roxy, as you are affectionately known, you're here to talk about something equally important, because if we don't start addressing these issues in our own small ways and collectively, it does make a huge impact, not only in our communities, but I should imagine globally, then we will have a war on our hands of a different type. A very good morning to you, Roxanne du Plessis. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
You are an environmental activist, waste management consultant, artist, and educator as well. What a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, listeners, and good morning, Julie. Lovely to be here. You touched on quite an important bit there with regards to Cape Town, with regards to the housing crisis. The management of our waste can well support that and actually grow that sector, but that's for a long conversation. We can actually create bricks out of waste, so that's something that we can have a conversation on a bit later. But yes,
your journey into this space, were you always aware of the environment and waste issues as a growing child, or when and how did you start thinking seriously about these issues?
So growing up, I was born in Cape Town, born in Mitchell's Plain, and I grew up on the beaches, and I remember, while it wasn't perfect, I certainly don't remember the world being such a mess. And my mum was quite strict about not throwing waste on the ground. When you go out, you take with what you take home with you what you came with, and so that was always really important to me, not littering, taking care of the environment. I grew up hiking in the mountains of Cape Town with my dad. And so the environment was always important to me. And it started, as I started traveling, it started becoming quite clear to me that there were certain things happening. An excess of plastic, water issues, people not caring as much about the environment as before, just littering where they see fit. And it kind of hurts, because you go to the beach and you're at this most beautiful place, and then there's trash everywhere. And it's not trash that comes from nowhere, it's trash that comes from us. And that's quite
irresponsible.
Yeah, yes.
I kind of raised this with a counsellor a long time ago on this very same show, and I kind of said, what is it with our people that, going to a store and buy a packet of chips or a burger, whatever the case may be, have your meal, walking down the street, and then just throw the trash out. And I've seen plenty of times people throwing trash out of a moving car.
Yes, it's ridiculous.
And you kind of wonder, what are their homes like? How do they live to be able to act so irresponsibly? The response I got from the counsellor was that there are not enough waste bins on our streets, and I just found that as a very, very poor excuse.
Yeah, that's quite an excuse. Even look, we're bad here, terrible. But globally, there's also issues, So I witnessed the craziest thing on New Year's. I was on a beach in Brazil, and when everyone left, they left everything they had come with on the beach, all the plastic forks and knives and spoons and the plates and the trash. They left it. And I was so confused. And I was with friends of mine who are also very, very conscious. And as we walked the beach, we picked up litter on our way and then put it in a bin at the top of the beach. And so bin is an excuse for sure. I was wondering why they would possibly do that growing up next to the beach. I believe it's job creation.
Oh my word.
How ridiculous. Before half of that gets taken by the guys who come to clean it in the morning, it's in the ocean. So, these are all silly excuses to not take care of our own waste, really. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's bad.
I wonder if that could perhaps address some of our unemployment issues in
Mm,
South Africa. We know that we have plenty of people sitting on street corners begging,
hmm
but I wonder if you offered something like that to them, would they take on that job?
Yeah.
Or do they make more money standing on street corners and begging? And, I know people might take offense to what I've just said, but that is a reality in our
Absolutely.
country. And also, we don't need to have beggars on every street corner. And
Mm,
I do understand that we have a huge unemployment problem, but government, wake up. Let's create
mm.
jobs for our people, even if it means they become cleaners on the street. But be that as it may, Reimagine 2050, what is that all about and how are you involved with it?
Okay, so I'm going to take it back a step with regards to the public employment. Yes, I've been very fortunate actually to be involved and working alongside and offering advice to some of the public employment programs that are happening in Johannesburg. There's loads of cleanups happening. And the issue is what happens to waste once it's collected? That for me is the big question. So we can clean up waste for every day, we can keep doing it, and every day there will be more trash because the taps at the top are not turned off. So producers are still creating and we're still consuming. So the idea of just collecting waste, while a lovely gesture, it doesn't solve the problem. And my Reimagined 2050, something that I started probably in about 2016 as an Instagram page, just a way to find alternatives for reuse and repurposing our waste. And that has, because it is a global issue, lots and lots of information exists. And it exists open source online because it is a global issue. And so Reimagined 2050 is actually a project seeking to process waste into something that can be sold on. So creating a new raw material. And then, yes, you can earn more than you would sitting at the robot because you've actually got a skill. You can create new product with this raw material, and then you can, well, besides having pride and dignity at creating something absolutely beautiful, you will be making a fair amount of money. I make all my money through waste and I
Wow.
survive quite well.
Do you have a job for me? Roxanne, you mentioned the magic word just now and you spoke about landfill.
Uh-huh.
We've had a problem in the area that I live in for the past 2 or 3 weeks. Pick It Up didn't pick up our trash.
Mm-hmm.
And then our local councillor put a notice out suggesting and saying that it's not really about Pick It Up staff. They have a challenge on their hands because there are not enough landfill areas. And the landfill areas where they take out trash to is full.
Yeah.
So what do? They've got to go all the way out Lenasia way,
Mm-hmm.
and sooner or later that landfill will not be able to take on the capacity. What's your take on landfills? And should all our trash be going there? And should a local councillors be thinking differently about how we dispose of our waste?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I just recently did a very interesting art piece based on landfill. I'll share the image with you a little bit later, but landfill is just about full. And so
Globally?
in South Africa, I think globally it's an issue, but I know for sure in South Africa it's about, I stand corrected, but like not even 3 years from being full.
Sure.
But there's solutions to everything. And we were discussing the other day because we are looking for solutions, and some of them are community-based and some of them are private companies and some of them are even government. They're trying to find solutions for this issue. And in a room of like basically a few of all of those sectors, we were looking at solutions. And this pod that processes plastic, that Reimagined is fully backing, is a pod that can be placed anywhere, a container-sized pod where waste can be processed. And so we're looking at having possibly these pods at landfill stations or at landfill places where it can be processed on site. So there are ways to solve this issue at many places, not just at landfill, but before it even gets to landfill, before it leaves our homes. So there are plenty of solutions. It's a case of really just understanding that the work needs to be done and get to it.
You talk about transformation taking 3 forms. What are those 3 forms? And then a little later on in the interview, I'd also like to talk about our responsibility as homeowners. Surely we can do so much more. We can be so much more proactive regarding disposal of our waste, and also not taking away from the waste pickers, because that's a genuine form of earning for them.
Absolutely.
But there should be solutions where we can be more responsible with our waste disposal and make their task a little easier and more hygienic.
So that's a very big one for me.
Okay, so maybe you want to respond to that, and then we'll look at your transformation taking on 3 forms. It might be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a very simple thing that we can do, I think waste pickers are so important. We would have a very big problem if we didn't have waste pickers. So South Africa can be very, very grateful that we have these kind souls who are trying to make a living, who come and scratch through our waste to be able to live. And the very least we can do is separate into wet and dry. So if you live at home, whether you're renting or owning, you have a home, if you can just separate your wet and dry, that will make things so much easier. So the way I do it is I have 2 bins. I have one that takes all of my containers and boxes and all the dry waste, as it's called.
Newspaper,
bottles, cans. It would be nice if you could rinse them before you threw it in there, but it's still better than not separating. I rinse mine, and then we throw all of those big items into one bin, and then I have a smaller bin that takes all of my organic waste or wet waste. And sometimes in that wet waste there is like pieces of styrofoam, because your meat comes in that. Whatever nasty waste, just put it in there. Nappies, diapers, pads, whatever, all together. And that can then be processed outside of the home. So it's organic and non-organic.
Let's just go a step further then. You talk about some nasty stuff going into the wet waste, which really I think is so disrespectful to the waste, because they're having to wade through all of that. And I've noticed some of them don't even wear gloves. No. How do you then do you just then put the wet waste directly into the bin and it will be taken away by Pick It Up or whoever services your area, and then the dry waste is what
the pickers will take with them,
and then not have to rummage through the all of your rubbish,
rotting. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I keep a lot of my waste because I'm a waste artist, but even for my own household, it becomes too much. So I do have to put it outside. But the way that happens is dry waste in one black bag and wet waste goes into the normal bin. Pick It Up takes that. We're busy with quite an interesting project for organic waste as well. We still have to wait for the details of that to be released, but it's taking all that organic waste also and then converting that into compost that will help with soil health.
So we're talking about 3 types of waste. We're talking dry, we're talking wet, which is all the nasty stuff, and we're talking organic as well. That could be even for home owners, they could create then their own compost.
Right.
is that part of the transformation that takes three forms, or is that totally a different issue?
So I think separating waste definitely touches on education of waste in a big way. Like I think it's safe to say that a lot of people are not aware of where their waste goes when they throw it out. And I know that sounds weird, but when you speak to people, whether it's about the work that they do that involves waste or their own waste, people become quite overwhelmed at it. And I get it. It's a lot to think about because we have to eat, we have to dress, we have to live. And so it's almost as if this big burden is put on us. But education is one of the three prongs that I believe quite deeply in educating kids. I work a lot with kids, and
At schools?
we have little workshops. We had a holiday workshop recently. I do play in the park with Rihanna out in Crosby. And so we're trying to educate from young because they will educate their parents. I am working on a story that will become a roadshow so that we can start educating kids all over South Africa.
Please go into the schools.
Absolutely. I'd be very, very happy to go into schools. I know sometimes it's a little bit of an issue getting in there, but you can catch the kids outside of school in the communities, like creating beautiful spaces for them to be. Yeah, lots of projects happening in the communities.
Okay, so that's the one form. What are the other two forms?
So definitely policy. Policy is a big one. If we don't change policy, we will continue to have this issue. And as much as we keep processing plastic, we don't want to keep processing waste and taking waste out of our environment. As consumers, we want more options. We want to have our milk in glass bottles or have our food come in refilled packaging so that we're not using plastic unnecessarily. So changing policy is a big one for me. And then we spoke about education being another one. And then my art is also quite an important one. When I started researching waste, I became quite overwhelmed. It is quite overwhelming. And so I kind of stepped back for a bit. And I was lucky in that I was able to find art and making art with waste materials specifically. So not just painting, I do some of that, but making making art with waste itself. And that's been going really well. It's also a way for us to see that waste has value. Once we attach a value to something, all of a sudden everybody wants it.
Absolutely.
Just a small example. For example, if you think of the pallet, right? A few years ago, you could find pallets laying everywhere. And now all of a sudden it has a value because people want to make beautiful furniture.
Absolutely.
And so now you can't get a free pallet at all.
Okay.
So we attach value to waste, and then all of a sudden, it's valuable.
I want to talk about two important issues. The one is medical waste. I don't know if you've touched on that. I often wonder when I go and see a medical practitioner, goodness me, it's horrifying when I think about the waste that they collect and what happens to all of that waste, because if not properly disposed of, it can end up being a serious hazard and spread disease exponentially. So I worry about that a lot. And then I want to come down to myself as a householder. How can I be more responsible? And how can we start creating champions within the little communities to start rolling things out to conscientize people about this very important matter, and that is responsible disposal of waste. So medical waste firstly.
Medical waste is it's a big one. Especially for me, my dad went through many years of dialysis before he passed away, and wow, what an amount of it's insane, the amount of medical waste. I still have, actually, I kept quite a bit of my dad's waste and I use it in the art that I make, obviously the non-toxic ones, the packaging. I still have some of that, and I use that in my art because, yes, medical waste is a really big issue. I think, and I stand corrected, but I think the toxic waste is still incinerated, and the rest of the waste is goes to pick it up. I am speaking to a few hospital related people. We are trying to find ways that we can actually process this waste, but again, it needs to be separated from the sort of toxic used part of it, and then the rest is plastic. It's basically plastic, and that needs to be processed. So yes, an ongoing fight to regulate that waste. Medical waste is a big issue.
Absolutely. Gosh, we take so much for granted. We
Mm.
don't even apply our minds to
Mm.
the issue around waste. And as I speak with you, I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Mhm.
But I do also realize that each and every one of us has a responsibility
Mhm.
to become responsible regarding disposal of our waste. So that's taken care of the different types of waste. Are you going to start creating champions in different areas in our
Absolutely.
suburbs and townships to start running with
Absolutely.
these initiatives so
Yeah.
that we can become cleaner, friendlier, more
Mhm.
beautiful areas to live in?
Absolutely. We're working on a few projects. Um, and then not just me, but plenty of community projects are happening all over. We have the water warriors in Soweto. We have plenty of people doing amazing little projects, and we're trying to join hands with them so that we're not working, like separate from each other, but that we can. We don't have to recreate the wheel, but we can come together and sort of collaborate on these things because it's the same issues across the board. We have lots of projects happening in Nuclear. We're doing beautifying projects in Bosmont. And these are definitely about finding young people to champion these projects. So we did a holiday club, and the theme was waste. So it's getting kids excited about how they can reuse and repurpose their waste into something fun. In fact, many of these communities, these poorer communities, the kids there already have such wild and crazy ideas for what to make with waste because they've always had to be a little bit more creative and inventive, right? Creating balls from loads and loads of plastic bags put together and all sorts of stuff, So, yes, we need our young champions, and we collectively with a friend of mine who community green projects out in Bosmont, um, that we are getting young people excited about waste.
The friend that you refer to, would that be Debbie Cockrell?
That's correct.
Ah,
Yes,
okay. I have
yes,
chatted with her as well.
yes.
Just give us an idea. You've gifted me a little plant,
Uh-huh.
and I'd like you to, I'll get our technician to give us a close up shot of this. Can you explain to us? This looks very attractive, but can you explain to us what has been done here? How long it's taken you?
Hmm.
And is it mainly all totally recycled stuff that has
Yeah,
created this little plant,
yeah.
this little plant holder?
Yeah, so one of the fun things that we do with kids is teaching them about growing things and soil health, and one of the big things is like making little planters. So this planter, um, I was playing around with the design. It's a hanging planter, so you can unscrew the lid, hang it over like a little rail, and then it hangs. But this, we show the kids that you don't need to go out and buy things. You can use what is around you, tweak it a little bit, and then make something cute. One of the ways that they do the little seedling planters, we all the crisp packets,
Yeah.
like the chippy packets. You can fill those too and then start your seedlings there. So it's just showing ways that you can use what is around you to live, right? To to package things, to hold things. I make a lot of pen holders out of tins, and so we can reuse, find another purpose for things that would usually just go to the bin.
And if we don't start being more creative about our waste in 10, 20, 30 and future generations, there's not going to be a lot of stuff to go around, is there?
No.
And
hence,
it's worrying.
Yeah.
It's worrying.
And hence the idea to process what we have into a raw material, and then that raw material goes back into this cycle, right?
Absolutely.
So we're not creating more, we're just reusing, and the cycle continues. And 2050, Reimagine 2050, that was the date. There was a lady, I forget her name, also Julie, I believe. She said that there would be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2050. And
Absolutely.
we've surpassed that. There's already more plastic than fish, and our fish are full of plastic. So
absolutely. And we're ingesting it.
And we are ingesting it. I love sushi, and it's troublesome for me. But, we need to look at making the future a little bit cleaner for, the next generation to come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you keep referring to your art, and you've brought in a beautiful little planter here, which just indicates how we can recycle all of our trash. What do you do with all of the art that you create? Is it, art pieces that could be bought by people, or do you donate it on? What do you do?
So I really enjoy functional art. So I make a lot of functional art. I make tables and chairs and mirrors, and those usually get sold. I get commissioned to make some of these things too. And then there are art pieces that are think pieces, and I put them on exhibition wherever it's appropriate. For example, the landfill piece was commissioned for a waste and public employment event, and now it is doing sort of around Joburg. It's being exhibited. It was at the happening over the weekend past, and it's just a think piece to get people thinking about the issue of waste. And so my art is either gets sold or it gets exhibited. But either way, I put it out there because at least it's not going to landfill.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap up in a couple of minutes' time. Let's look at the space of waste management and opportunities for young unemployed people. When, how can they access opportunities? We're not talking about top-level management positions. We're just talking about a position where they can safely say, I'm employed, and they can put bread on the table.
So it's a complicated one, because I think oftentimes in South Africa, some of us are relying on the government to give us these jobs. Others are entrepreneurial, and they're creating these jobs for themselves. There are opportunities, and I guess it boils down to figuring out what it is that you can do in your immediate surroundings. So look at your community. What are the gaps there that you can fill? If you live in a community that is quite dirty and has lots of waste around, start there. Start with your community. So bring them together and start collecting that waste. The minute you do that, it's going to open up another connection. And these are the connections that will eventually lead us to being gainfully, whether it's gainfully employed or having our own business. But you need to put yourself out there. You need to go and get into your community, get into your environment, speak to people, find out what you love, find out what you can do, can create, because that's why we're here. We came to create an experience. So I think waste is such a fun way to play, because it's free material everywhere, right? And it's what you do with that is the difference.
And regarding paper, newspaper, wood for furniture, etc., if we're not responsible, we're not going to have enough trees to serve us in future generations. Let's wrap up now once again and talk Reimagine 2050. What is that outcome going to look like, and what's the current workload or the current thinking going into Reimagine 2050?
Lovely. So with regards to paper, if someone picked up that idea, you can make such awesome paper with waste paper. Like you can make paper with waste paper.
Wow.
Very, very interesting industry as well. But with regards to Reimagine 2050, where do we see ourselves? We would love to have plastic being processed nationwide. I know it's happening globally. I know that Bali and places like Bali and India and Europe, they're already processing plastic. They already have policies changed, with regards to how their packaging is. So, those things are happening globally, and I'd love to see it happening here in South Africa. So for Reimagine, we are definitely going to be involved in the processing of plastic. And then we're talking about the processing of organic waste with the company in Cape Town. That's really exciting. I won't speak too much about it now, but it's a model that works really well in Cape Town, and they'd like to see it happening here in Joburg. So that's for organic waste. And then, yes, so we would like to see the processing of waste, not just the collection of waste from the environment, but the processing of that waste, and then giving people these skills and developing them to create beautiful objects from these raw materials. And we'd love to include the waste pickers and young people who don't know what their mission is in life yet. But the trick is to get started, and that's what we're doing every day. We do a little something to further this mission. And it's not a one-man mission. I can't do this myself. And there are plenty of amazing people that I work with. And we hope to find more of them, because the more, like my mum used to say, and still says, many hands make light work.
Absolutely.
So the more we can all gather to deal with this issue, the better.
Okay, we're going to wrap up a pearl of wisdom from you to housewives and youngsters.
Our waste is part of us, right? We are not apart from the issue of waste. We are part of the issue of waste. And a little bit of introspection goes a long way for each of us. Don't make it everybody else's problem. Think about what you consume. Try to just separate it at source. And then when community projects happen, get involved, That's definitely the message.
Right across the board.
Yeah, across the board.
Roxanne du Plessis, thank you so very much for coming in.
Julie.
I think there's so much more to cover, so we need to have a follow-up interview at some point.
Amazing. Lots to talk about.
But really keep up the great work. It's so great to know that there are people out there with a conscience, and I'll call you the clean lady or the cleanup lady.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. You take care. Until the next time, God bless.
You too.
And of course, that's all we have for today. Thank you indeed for your company. From me, Julie Little, tomorrow at 10 o'clock on mid-morning. As always, Assalamu alaikum and Khud Hafiz.